Yes, yes. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to a very special edition of Ill Communication, where I, ill.Gates, have conversations with awesome people, such as today's very special guests, Steve Duda and Robb G.
Oh, thank you.
Who's now a repeat guest.
Been here before, yes.
Repeat guest. But yeah, welcome. Thanks for stopping by the dojo. It's great to have you guys here.
Yeah, it's exciting. I didn't realize we were neighbors so much. I'm like just right up the street. So
oh, that's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, we're in downtown LA, the warehouse district, and all the grit and the grime, and it's beautiful. So many things are possible, and yeah, it's really fun living here. It's worth the smog and the chaos and everything, because sometimes randomly things like this happen.
Yeah, people come to you. You're in a central place where you can magnetize people coming to visit.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, LA's a weird thing because it has so many different. Like, if you ask people about LA, I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area, and there's always this divide of Californians. Like Northern Californians, if you associate them with LA, they get really offended and mad. They're like, "No, we're different." And then LA is always said in Northern California, like LA, like people say it with this sort of like it's this shithole kind of place. And so I always grew up with that sort of experience, but I never really came down here besides to Disneyland or something. But when I moved here for music, like I worked on a Nine Inch Nails record for 2 years in New Orleans, and then I used that as like my calling card. I was like, I had $1,000 to my name and 2 phone numbers, but it's like, what do you do? Well, just worked with Nine Inch Nails. I bet I could find work in LA. So I moved here with awesome. Nothing and had no problem. Just like because like my dad said, who grew up in LA, he's like, oh Steve, you're gonna find out like Bay Area is great, but LA is like a different level of a powerhouse. And he's like and he used that specific word. He said for the music industry in particular, it's really a powerhouse. And that's exactly what I found. It was just like as soon as I came here, it was like plugged in. And it's a little off-putting. It's kind of part of the same thing that people say is negative about LA. There's this sort of way of the culture that people are a little, especially back then, people are a little bit, who are you and what do you do and who do you know? And that kind of thing, of course, is a little off-putting because like, why do I have to know someone or do something to be of like value here? Why can't we just be people? But it's actually a very nice way of being when you actually do want to network, which is like, my name's Steve, and I just moved here, and I know nobody, you worked in Nine Inch Nails, oh, meet my friend in Jane's Addiction, and all of a sudden, like, people want to network for you and trying to introduce you to people and make connections. Oh, we should do something, and so, I don't know. I think LA is is still a valuable place to be, although you can definitely make it anywhere. It's not like a necessity by any means, but things do happen here just by being present.
I feel it. This is my first time being in LA, so I came in last night, and I've never been before, landing in the airport, driving on the highway, and coming into town, and I'm in a place right now where I'm feeling really healthy, I'm feeling really strong, I'm feeling really confident. I felt small. Just looking at all of the buildings and thinking of the powerhouse where it's like the center of music industry, of film and entertainment, and now of YouTube and social media. Like, there's just so much here. And I had a moment of, it's like when you stand at the edge of some beautiful big nature item and you're like, I'm small. Yeah. I had that feeling, but it was really a weird way last night.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it's you definitely feel like the little fish here, and kind of no matter what level you're at, there's going to be someone who's more successful and more rich or whatever, and more celebrity gets attracted to them. So it's like, I don't know. Generally people in LA are pretty cool, though. I find like there's not a lot of like measuring up. People aren't really checking you out to sort of see how much money you get. You get a little more on like the East Coast in New York. I feel like people kind of look at your watch and your shoes, and they're trying to kind of size up like how much money you have. And I think in LA people aren't so concerned with that. Maybe there's some concern about like what you can do for them, and I think there is that sort of thing because a lot of people are career-minded, but I don't really get the feeling often like people are really trying to like size you up, at least. So I don't feel too intimidated in LA. I feel like, I mean, even the celebrities dress down, so you kind of like, I don't feel even obligated to like look a certain part.
I like the anonymity a lot too. Like in our neighborhood, like especially in our building, like our immediate next door neighbors are like these famous Dungeons and Dragons like gaming streamer people.
Nice.
And they have totally like their own world going on, and like every Monday there's all these people showing up in like armor and stuff, and it's just like their house is crazy. And then like down the way there's these people run like a film studio, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there, and like you always see people walking down the street with like cameras, and then there's like the neighborhood homeless people and stuff, and like just it's just like nobody really cares. Like, it's like, oh yeah, okay, well you're, this weirdo with the green hair and you're probably up to something, but like you don't stand out, Whereas like now, whenever I go to another place and it just becomes this like, like either like suburban space or like corporate space, I'm always like, oh fuck, Karen's gonna call the cops. Like, what am I gonna do?
You can feel the eyes of judgment being cast on you. Like, who's this weirdo? And like, definitely don't get that here.
Yeah, it's a good vibe. I wasn't expecting to love it, but like I really love living here, especially like just the freedom of it and being able to be loud. Hey, what's up, Seth?
Steal my eye lock. I think I left it in here last
night. Yeah, it's around the back. It's plugged into the hub.
I knew it.
Yeah, but yeah, Seth is just here. We're just wrapping up a training week at the dojo. It's been really fun. Been doing lots of training, making lots of music, and Seth was doing a private training session yesterday, and I showed him how the screen recorder works and everything, and they're all getting ready to train and going through all these mix downs and doing these like really top secret mixing techniques, and homeboy hit live stream instead of record and just accidentally streamed this like super VIP, so I didn't know it was on the live stream. Got a real treat yesterday.
All the secrets.
All the stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
That's great.
Pretty fun. But there are no secrets anymore. It's the internet, and I kind of love that about it, man. Like, I really like, I remember when I was first starting out. It was like such a guarded, insular world, and it was like only certain people could afford the tools to make music, and then those who could afford it, they sure as hell weren't gonna like let anyone else know how to use it, and like there's that whole like famous story about the Abbey Road reverbs, where you'd go into Abbey Road and you'd want to get a reverb on your track, and like you could see the mixing board and everything, but that reverb send, it just went off into this other room, and it came back mysteriously not muddy and clean and magic, and you weren't allowed to go into the other room to find out what was going on in there. And then it turns out that they were just high passing it, and they just didn't want you to know that if you put a high pass on the way into the reverb, and then a low pass, it would make the reverbs come out better, and then high pass and low pass kind of became known as the Abbey Road EQ and stuff. But it was like, it's just so funny, and like now that attitude, like it's just, nice guys don't finish last anymore. Dickheads get kicked out. Everybody shares their secrets. It's just, I think, healthier.
Well, then the knowledge, I mean, for you very directly, the knowledge becomes part of the product too, in a sense. I mean, you can either be forthcoming with the knowledge and say if you're an artist and that's really your focus, you could give away some knowledge and tips for free, and then that could bring people more interested in your music potentially, or bring a larger music fan base. You might gain new fans that just saw your technique video, and then they go, oh, I want to check out this guy's music because he seems to know what he's talking about, and then maybe they become a fan of your music. So I think it's sharing the knowledge can have direct benefit, of course, even if you're not selling the knowledge, and so just using that as extra content really to create yourself. So I feel like that's been a weird shift. I feel like people make these tutorial videos right after they discover something, right? Like they'll be playing around with something, they'll be like, oh, that's cool. Oh, let me make a video on this. Hey guys, here's how you get this such and such sound that I accidentally just discovered, And so, has a downside too, is that you have a lot of teachers who aren't really that knowledgeable, right? I'm sure you've seen these videos where people start describing. I mean, it cringes me like watching Serum videos or something when people start to try to describe what something does, and of course they're not describing it correctly, and I'm sitting there just cringing because I'm like, that's false information. You're misinformation. And then I'll usually leave a little comment, just so you know, that actually doesn't do that. But but that's the case now. You almost have in a way, the downside would be that you have the blind teaching the blind a bit, or you can have that potentially. But yeah, the level playing field's amazing. When I was starting out, it was the mythical record deal was the way to make it in music. That was like the sort of it was what it seemed like. That was the wedge or the divide between the failed and aspiring musicians, or the ones without this record deal, and then there's this record deal on the other side that according to this myth, or what you thought as a kid at least, is that then all problems would be solved once you got this record deal.
Magic fairy in a
suit.
suit.
You'd be rich and famous and everything would be good. So how do I get this record deal? Well, you have to make some demos and shop your demos. Well, how do you make demos? Well, you have to go into a recording studio, because you can't make demos at home. That's ridiculous with a 4-track cassette recorder. No one's going to take your demos as seriously, right? So obviously that's all changed now, and I watched the recording studios crumble in the late '90s or early 2000s here in LA, where there was 40,000 recording studios when I moved here, and there's I think less than 10,000 left, and most of them private now too. And that shift was largely because of Pro Tools and these tools becoming, you could make a professional quality recording in your bedroom, and producers started doing that, and they'd say, oh, well, instead of $1,000 a day at the record plant, we'll just track the vocals at my place, it'll sound the same, and I can actually edit all the vocals at home too. And then all of a sudden the label started realizing, well, such and such saved $50,000 on their record by doing it at home, why don't you do it too? And they started demanding this. So you had all of a sudden it's tangential, but yeah, the album budget started shrinking too. Of course, the studios couldn't compete with this shrinking, and a lot of them went out of business. But this is all a good thing. I totally agree with you. To have a level playing field is amazing. And we're not there yet in a certain sense. I mean, you have a lot of toys around you here that probably people would aspire to have. But I think it's pretty arguable to say that you can make amazing music for next to free at this point.
Yeah, none of them are really that necessary. I always like to say, like music equipment is a lot like sex toys. You can have sex for free. That's great sex that you're totally just like, you live for it, and it's just the best. Or if you're into buying sex toys, you can spend as much money on sex toys as you like. Both of those things are okay.
Didn't think of that analogy.
That's twice today that there's been a sex analogy that's come up. I was having lunch earlier with Steve, and he was talking about someone saying to him to his face that they illegally downloaded Serum, and then being like, how does that make you feel? Like putting him on the spot with it.
Oh no!
Yeah. And share your analogy.
No, it was basically like, the guy was more or less like, it was like after a show I played it, and then the guy was like, hey, I just want to say I'm a really big fan of Serum. I use it all the time, and it was like his train of thought. He was sort of like, and actually I didn't pay for it. Well, how does that make you feel? It was almost like he was like trying to like cover his mouth. Yeah, and I'm like, how do you think that makes me feel? And then I was like, so I thought about that later, and I was like, what would be an analogy if someone just didn't make software? Because piracy and stealing, that's not really the best analogy. If someone steals something from your house, you're now without that thing, right?
Yeah.
And if someone steals my software, I still have my software. So it's not really a stealing thing. And I was like, well, it's more like it's something that's really shameful that is wrong and you shouldn't do and probably shouldn't talk about. And I was like, it's kind of like masturbating to pictures of someone's girlfriend, right? Like, you shouldn't probably go to them and say, hey, your girlfriend, she's, I don't know if this is awkward, but she's kind of attractive, and, sometimes, how does that make you feel? How does that make you feel to say it? It's like,
that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Right? Because you don't see it coming. You're like, even I set you up. It's a sex thing, but like, where is he going to go with it?
I would not have guessed that.
Oh, it's so great.
Oh, that's pretty good.
That's pretty much like how I am.
Did you tell him that?
No, so I thought about that later.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just like not very great or something at the moment, but yeah, no, it's like, but that's the best analogy to me. It's piracy. It's like, better. If you're gonna do it, just don't tell anyone about it. Like, just know that it's wrong and do that in the dark. Like, I don't know.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Word. So hey, can we talk about Serum for a bit?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's like bread and butter. Like, if you don't own Serum, what are you doing with your life? I mean, it's nice. So I love Serum, and for me, the thing that really keeps me coming back is the ability to modulate everything, like the effects parameters and stuff. And I think that one of the greatest strengths of it, like, because we're all used to hearing an LFO move a wavetable, we're all used to hearing an LFO move a filter, but when you send LFO to kind of some unusual destinations around the synth, that's when you really get sounds that are unusual and fresh and exciting. And for me, one of the most exciting ones that I found recently was the compressor in Serum. As you know, when you go into the multiband mode, it essentially turns into OTT, and you get those classic three band splits, and you're like, oh, I know those shapes. That's OTT. And once I started using the LFO or envelope to control the threshold of the OTT compression, and then you get this like fluctuating multi-band spank.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, where was that all my life? Like, I'm gonna do this on all my sounds.
Interesting.
And I was wondering if you had any other unusual destinations for modulation that any other unusual
Maybe.
modulation destinations that
I mean,
that
there's
we
a lot
should
of
know about?
there's a lot of interesting things. I mean, the impetus behind the kind of modulating the effects. Well, not the impetus, but you know, when I was doing the modulation stuff. Sorry, I shouldn't kick the table.
All
The
good.
the weird thing with effects, as you know, is that they're monophonic, right? Like if you have multiple notes playing, the effect is just a signal that's being processed of all of your notes combined. And so for that reason, unlike like if you modulate the filter in Serum, and you could route an LFO to the filter, and now if you play like a bunch of different notes, they all have their own LFO going to their own cutoff on each one. But when you have an effect, it's just a stereo process. It's after the synth, really. So it's kind of like, it's really the equivalent of having VST effects chained after Serum. The only difference is these modulations can kind of route into it. But it was weird, and I almost didn't do it. A lot of synths don't allow you to modulate the effects, and the reason they kind of don't is the fact that they're monophonic. And so that, what do you do if someone plays a chord? And the options would be only listen to the first note, or allow every new note to now take over, and that's the note the modulation's listening to, which is what Serum does. But it's from a programmer or a logical point of view, it's a little bit of a cheesy or a sacrifice, right? Like, well, it's not really going to work like someone might think, in the sense that you can't do something polyphonic with that modulation now. But surprisingly, almost no one's complained about it. A few people expected it would do that, but most people have not complained, so it's been seamless. My concerns were kind of like for no reason. And then it's been insane how many people do modulate the effects. I mean, it's like almost more presets I see have effects modulated than don't. And one thing that's really surprised me is how many people, although it makes a lot of sense for like dubstep sound design and stuff, and bass music kind of sounds, but is taking one modulation source like an LFO and then sending it to like 8 or 9 destinations. I mean, I see this like all the time. And it makes really cool sounds. It kind of makes sounds I wasn't even really thinking personally to make with Serum, but it's just like these sounds that really morph from a sort of A state to a B state and back, right? Because it's all of these parameters of the sound shift, and then they modulate back as the LFO goes back to that first one. So you sort of have this weird A morphs to B kind of sounds going on, which is really interesting and very kind of a current fad, of course, in terms of a sound to do. In terms of other things like that in Serum, the exciting one to me is not a destination as much as it is a source, which is the noise oscillator.
Yeah.
Being able to load any sample in, and then you can use that, similar to like the FM or FM/B, you can just turn down the noise oscillator. So you're just using it as a mod source. But you can have any waveform you want. And it could be super long or just a single cycle that loops.
Yeah.
You can have that as the mod source. So this allows you to modulate anything with a really complex signal.
Have you seen the AU5 tutorials with the audio rate LFOs using the noise source?
No, I know.
Man.
I knew he mentioned that to me, that he's into it. I actually added a audio in feature because maybe I did see that video because I did see that.
Man, it's great. His videos, like of all the Serum videos, I think his are my favorite. Yeah. I'm a big fan.
I agree.
Of AU5.
Yeah, I agree. But, he's very articulate. I like his way of talking. Kind of reminds me of me in a strange way. It's sort of like it's very logical and like and so his videos are very like he's a very good communicator and very interesting kind of unique stuff. So yeah, those are great. But yeah, so he asked for, he's like, Steve, it'd be really cool, and I was like, oh, wait, he said my name. It'd be really cool if you added audio input to the Serum effects noise oscillator. So that way you can so now in the newest version of Serum effects, you can set audio in as the noise oscillator. And now what happens is anytime you play a note, it just opens up the input at the noise where the noise oscillator would be, which means it routes to the voice filter, which you couldn't do before.
Very cool.
And then it routes to the mod source, noise oscillator mod source. So now you can take the audio input, route that to any parameter.
I did not know
Serum
this.
effects, yeah.
Oh, this is good. I'm going to use that all the time.
And so you can do some interesting things with that, which is cool. So yeah, I'd say noise oscillator is kind of the most interesting one. I'm trying to think of destinations. There's a few weird, unique things in Serum, like the unison effect, which is called hyper, right? And the hyper effect on the hyperdimension effects module has a retrig switch. The retrig switch will restart all of the phases. It's the unison effect is called hyper, is really like a very short chorus. And the idea was I was trying to just make something that would thicken sounds like a chorus kind of does, but more to like simulate unison. So I was like, well, what if you just kept the delays so small they'd fall within a single cycle, essentially, right? So it'd be like stacking. So that's what it does, and it tries to like just do both directions of pitch shifting to balance things out. And so it's just a really short chorus. But what I did with it, which I thought was kind of interesting and unique, was I added a retrig switch, which is on there, which I'm not sure how useful it is, but it's kind of cute. It's unique. It's the only like synth I can think of with a effect parameter that responds to the actual MIDI notes, which is what's happening there. So when retrig is on it, it simulates what happens when you have all your phases lined up with the unison.
I could see that being really useful for percussion, like if you were doing some kind of split chorusy percussion thing.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah. I think it has uses, but in terms of unique, there's that. I've got some upcoming stuff which is really fun. I've been working. Really basically done with it now. It's just going through testing. Is the LFO point modulation, where you can take any point or curve of any point on the LFO and assign that to what's called a bus, an LFO bus. And so you could select 8 points or 1 point, whatever, and say, I want to modulate this LFO vertical point by this other envelope or this LFO. So now you can have LFOs moving other LFOs. And it gets really nutty. I'm excited
a few times.
Yeah, even on the very simple ones, is the most usable situation would be like your LFO is just a downward saw, and you just want to like adjust the curviness of it over time. So like over 4 bars, it gets more and more decay-like or whatever. And so those things are now really easy to do. But I'm excited to see what people do with this, because you can go pretty deep with the LFO busing. I made like a whole like Bach prelude. It's like a 32 bars of this Bach prelude off of just using multiple LFOs, because it's like the Bach prelude is like do 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 do. It's like a repeating pattern over and over, and then the notes just shift. So what I did is I just made the bass pattern, and then I made other LFOs which were longer, like 16 bar LFO that just shifted a particular note at this different time. So it's basically one LFO that you see the notes moving for each successive bar based on the LFO that's controlling it. And it was really easy and fun, actually, strangely, to do. It only took me like 5 minutes. Like, it wasn't really that hard. So I'm really curious to see like what stuff people will do, because it can definitely like open up in terms of complex modulation sources. It can definitely open up that. So that'll be fun. And then longer term, I have some really exciting things in the works, but that's further out. Yeah, not necessarily secret, just things that may not happen, so you don't know. But there's a bright future for Serum, and updates are always free. So Serum 2, everyone will get for free. Serum 3, free. And I have no plans to.
That's very, very nice of you to do that.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Cool. Everything I've done, like a lot of the decisions business-wise, have been just completely me thinking from a customer point of view, right? Because I've been a purchaser of plugins, as you have, and stuff for so many years that I know what it feels like to get that email going, update now for this, we added one thing, $120 or whatever, and you're going, no, I just want the bug fix. You guys have bugs. I see you fixed the bugs. Can I have the bugs fixed, please, and not spend money? So it really made me mad to spend money to get bugs fixed. And that and other things, copy protection things, dongles always drove me crazy. So I was like, you know what, I'd rather.
I hate dongles. They're like, let's punish only the people that buy our software.
Exactly, it punishes the paying user. That's right.
Only them. Yeah, it's really frustrating.
I'm having a moment here where I'm realizing that 3-ish years ago, when I decided I was going to start making music again, and I felt that inner calling that I had to start creating again, the first thing I did is flew out to hang out with him in San Francisco for a weekend, bought a new computer. Dylan graciously spent time helping me get things set up and whatever, and then when it came to like, okay, what's going on in the synth world, he was like, forget Massive, it's all about Serum now. Sweet. So I bought Serum while I was at your place, and you showed me how to use the LFO and using it for all these things but I didn't know you then.
That's right.
And this is 3 years ago.
Oh, really? I thought you knew him from Joel.
No, we just met last month.
Yeah, so like.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you'd known him for ages.
I met Steve very briefly once through Joel in passing before, but nothing memorable. Like, hey, how are you? There's a bunch of other people at Joel's place, but it was only a month and a half ago.
We really talked.
We talked at length and had several conversations, and now I feel like I know you well, and we've gotten along awesomely. But then I didn't know. But here I am, 3 years later, back visiting you. You're in a new city.
Things
I'm
are
friends
way
with
different
Steve
now.
and we're able to have this conversation. But you introduced me to his tools
Oh,
because I knew
yeah.
about the record label because of Joel, but I didn't know you were making
That's right.
plugins or synths and stuff.
That's cool. Yes.
How things change.
Full circle.
Yeah, man, definitely. Oh yeah, and you should check out our tune "Shine." That's the tune that we wrote with Pure Powers and Meja One and.
Well, actually, this is a funny thing. I did a project for a while under a secret name.
Oh fuck! I just ruined the secret.
No,
Not
it's
supposed to be you.
Well, no, there's.
That's what editing's for, right?
No, it's fine. It's
God, I'm so embarrassed.
It's so funny. And no, I've done many things in my life where I've started something and things didn't work out and they changed or whatever. And when I started making music again, I was afraid because my life got to a pretty terrible place when I was doing Rob G stuff, and I said, "Fuck it, I'm out. I'm retiring." I had a retirement party. I really went like off grid with it, like it's done. So then when I start feeling the calling again, I didn't feel okay or empowered to start showing up again as Rob G. So I created another name.
Makes sense.
And then part of the project too is I've always felt this affinity and want to encourage people to really go beyond what they think they can do, and that lots of things are possible. And I created this inspirational project, and it was called Nuberto, and I had like a launch video, and I had said there was these really big goals, and it was great, and I started working at it, and some things started to happen, but then I quickly realized that a bunch of the goals that I had set out for the project were goals that I thought would inspire other people, and they weren't goals that were necessarily aligned to what I wanted to do, and the goals are pretty much like step 1 to 50, if you accomplish these things, you're an EDM star. I don't want to be an EDM star.
Yeah.
I like the music I like doing. I'm an old school breaks guy. The music I love to make to play now is browse at best.
Yeah.
So when I hit challenges, as you always do, because my heart wasn't fully into it, I stopped doing the project. So yeah, there's a project there that I started and stopped. It's called Nuberto, and that's the name.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yes.
I thought it was pretty cool.
Yes. That was a funny thing, not related. But we brought the camera out because you started talking about the...
Oh yeah, this story that Steve busted out. I was like,
Oh, the story. Oh,
Yes.
about piracy or
no, it was
No.
your story, your
business approach.
the Tesla story,
The
your
business approach.
Oh, yeah.
What you learned,
Oh,
what
okay.
you learned when you got your Tesla.
I thought the piracy analogy was better, but
It is.
The piracy analogy was pretty
way
good. That was pretty good. Not gonna lie.
yeah. No, I was talking about kind of like my story. It's kind of personal. Like it's something I don't really talk about in the sense of.
Or we just talk
being
about
a
like
person.
what...
Well, because I mean, said person doesn't even want credit for it. But a good friend of mine bought me a Tesla for my 40th birthday, and
very sweet.
which was like really sweet and not something most people do. But it was actually really life changing for me. So it was something that like. Softened turning 40 for sure, to have this nice car to roll around in, and maybe there was a shift in self-perception that was soothing, but that wasn't really the thing that shifted things for me. It was the car itself that just blew me away, because to take a step back a little bit, I never liked to drive. I mean, I liked a little bit in high school when it means freedom and get out of the house, but I never really liked driving in LA. I mean, it's just like traffic and stress, and there wasn't really much enjoyable, especially when you had a really bad car, I came to find out, because this is the first time I had even a luxury car. So it was like, wow, what a difference to like have like a smooth ride with a nice seat and like the AC that works and, these luxuries. But then it was all the other things about the car too, like just, it's quiet and you never have to go to the gas station, and like the door handles pop out when you walk up to it because there's a sensor in the fob that knows your proximity, and just so many things that it can do. Play any artist and it'll start playing off the internet and downloading updates off the internet. And I was just like, everything I thought I knew about a car, these things that in my mind were fixed things, like this is what a car is, was kind of shattered. And it was sort of one of these shocking moments in life, and this happened on 9/11, and this happens in times where you like think you know what the world is, and then something's like, boom, the world is different than you thought. What I thought a car was just upended. These things that I thought could not be better or improved were improved. And so it kind of takes someone to just come along and do it. And it was just like, well, who made this thing? Like, who was it that and how did they do this? How did they surprise me and inspire me so much? And it's a little similar to discovering a new artist, and you're like, I want to know who this person is and like what their influences are. I want to understand how they made this music that to me is just insanely good, and I can't understand what their head. I want to know what they were thinking. And so for me, it was very much like, I want to know who made this Tesla and what they were thinking. Of course, that's Elon Musk, who gets plenty of praise heaped on him these days. This was like 2011, and so I started researching him on the internet, and he was really forthcoming with knowledge. There's actually a lot of interviews on YouTube and everything. You can look up Elon Musk interviews, and so I looked up Elon Musk entrepreneurs or something, and there was this whole talk he gave on entrepreneurial advice, and so they had questions like, what advice do you have for young entrepreneurs today? And he said, oh, there's a few things. The first one is take insane amounts of risk, like absolutely insane amounts of risk, while you're young, while you can afford to fail, while you don't have kids that depend on you. Just go for that moonshot, because it's okay, and that's the way that amazing things happen, is by really just putting your all into it. And so just take crazy amounts of risk. And then another thing he says, don't ship a product till you get it right. And a big one to me was, if you want to do something that's not just evolutionary, but rather revolutionary, what you need to do is don't look at the competition and see how they solve something and then just imitate them and try to just one-up them by, I'll do what they did, but just add this thing. No, don't do that. Instead, tear the problem down to the fundamentals. Don't assume that they did anything right. And rebuild everything, trying to reinvent and resolve every problem as it happens. So you're completely starting over from the fundamental problem, rebuilding something, iteratively improving on every facet of that. And that when you're left at the end, you'll have something that's not just evolutionary, but revolutionary. So that was like advice I took to heart. I mean, I kind of took it like a minister. I was like, here's this guy on this YouTube window, and he's really successful, and he made this car that I think's amazing. And so I'm just going to like listen to his advice and follow as much as I can, just blindly, without question. And so I did that with Serum. I said, I'm going to take insane amount of risk. And so to me, it was the maximum I was comfortable with. I was like massively in debt, and I had, mortgage, just sort of like debt, feels the same. And so I was like, well, I'm comfortable spending 3 years on this with no guaranteed income. So that's what I did. I spent 2 years and 10 months on Serum, just like,
wow.
It was like dark at times in the sense that I would add more things when things weren't finished. So I just built this huge, just like playground of mess with just stuff everywhere and just like bugs everywhere, and then I'd still add more in, right? So it's just sort of this. It was almost like a song project where you're like, well, I'll just add more anyway, and just creating this like unwieldy thing. And so that became difficult even just to close back down, but so worth it. And the Tesla still played in factor during this time, because I'd go drive that car again, be reminded of how rad it was, and then I'd come home, park it and close the door. I don't need to lock it because it locks itself, and then like go in and then, let's look at my Serum thing, and I'd have this barely started or whatever in the middle of process, just ugly interface that looks like MS Paint, and going like, how come this is my thing? Like, I just drove that like mythical beast chariot, and then I come back and this little MS Paint window, that's the best I can do. Like, this is my product, like that. And I would get really like bummed because of how amazing the car was in a way that like it needs to be better. So I started being, first time in my life, really, really critical on myself and critical on the things, and that no, okay is not good enough. And I always did this with music too. I'm not proud of anything I've done musically, because I always would just like, okay, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay, that's okay. Like, I never would like really try to get things to sound like I'd want them to, and I'd never get them at all close. As soon as they entered into acceptable, I'd say that's good enough. I would never say, no, let me make this great. And I've just recently started to make music where I'm spending a little bit more time on really trying to finesse things, and it's so rewarding, where I'm like, wow, each time it's like, this is the best thing I've ever made sonically, because I actually put in the time. And I love, I'm sure you do have project versions, go back to an old one, you're like, holy shit, I thought it sounded good back then.
Yeah, because it's always the best thing you've ever made when you're working on it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, 5 seconds later, you're like,
oh, this is terrible. Yeah. I hate everything about this. There's nothing I like about this. But yeah, no, so it went from, it's just amazing to be able to do that, though, and go back to an older version of the thing and go, oh my God, it sounds terrible. And, please don't still sound terrible on the new one. Am I crazy? And you open the new one, you're like, oh, fuck, it sounds amazing. So anyway, I'm getting more excited about that. But I think that's took me a long time in life to really learn how to like push myself in certain ways to go, that needs to be better. And because there's a lot, I mean, especially being a self-employed programmer, I mean, there's a lot of self-discipline that has to come into play, period. What do I have to do today? Well, nothing, unless I want to see income tomorrow, in which case probably should do something today, or whatever. So there's a lot of self-motivation anyway. But I really, with Serum, because of the Tesla, I really upped the ante on like quality and getting things right, and don't ship it till it's right, and all of that stuff. And then there was another factor from Tesla actually that I didn't mention, which is the lack of advertising, right? So Tesla doesn't advertise, and you know, there's one real big reason that they don't advertise traditionally, which has been they've had supply constraints, right? So if you don't have cars to sell to customers, why are you going to advertise your cars, right? And so they were kind of always meeting their supply constraints, and I'm sure they'll probably start advertising at some point, I would assume. But they've made it this far without advertising. And something really interesting happens when you don't advertise, I think. I have this sort of suspicion, which is that people become more eager to become advocates of the product themselves, right?
Yes.
Like, none of us are going to go outside and be like, oh, fucking Coca-Cola is awesome, right? I like Nike, you know, or whatever. And you're not going to tell people, like, you should check out Nike, dude. Like, you might like their products, you know. It's not going to happen,
It feels
right?
weird, yeah.
It feels super weird. Like, I couldn't recommend anything that's heavily advertised to someone. I'd feel like a schmuck because A, they must know about it because I've been bombarded by it, and B, I don't even know if that's my opinion. Is it a programmed opinion from these ads? Like, I don't know. And so with Tesla, they never advertised. And when I got the car, granted they were new at the time, I mean, I couldn't help just trying to be a salesman with everyone, because it literally like was so exciting to me, because I was like, I hated cars, now I love cars. You guys want to drive somewhere? I'd love to drive you. And so I'd really like start trying to sell people on the car almost. And then they started even doing a referral program where they'd give people, you know, free charging credits or whatever with referring sales. And then they started closing their stores, because they had put stores in malls mostly just to educate people on Tesla and electric cars. But then they realized that the customers are actually doing a lot better job making sales than the stores are. So they're like, let's just keep giving customers referrals. And
yeah, I mean, if I was going to buy a Tesla, I'd probably do it online.
That's right. You can't even, no, in the stores you can't even buy one. They say go on the web, go home, go on the website and order one. So it's like, well, what's the store there for? So I thought it was a clever move that they did that. I mean, they put them in malls on purpose because their people's guard is down. Like, you're not there to shop for a car. So you're just going hum to hum to hum. And they knew that if they just tried to open a dealership, like, people are just going to drive to the Chevy dealership. Like, why are they going to stop at this like mystery company? So it was really smart that they did that when people aren't in the market for a car.
Well, in a way, it was advertising.
That's true.
It was just not advertising.
That's right. It's not conventional advertising. I mean, it is putting their face out there, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of close. But because of Tesla, I kind of decided not to do any advertising at all. And I feel like the same thing may have happened a bit with Serum, which is that, I mean, I just knew, as you know, with the industry, everyone likes to talk shop. And if you have something that's rad, unless you're in that secret weapon mindset, you're not going to tell people about it. Which occasionally I'll hear people say, oh, Serum was my secret weapon. I'm like, no, it wasn't. Everyone knew about it already. But no, like, unless you're in that kind of mindset, people generally like to talk about these things. Dude, have you seen that new fucking thing that so-and-so made? It's fucking crazy. You can fucking tweak vocals or whatever, right? So that kind of conversations just happen. And then the Elon Musk, like, just build a compelling product, and the product will kind of sell itself. And your customers will help evangelize it if it's really, like, just
I'm one of
good.
them. I'm one of them. I always tell everybody, they're like, what plugin should I buy? And I'm like, if you don't own Serum,
it's awesome. That's how my sales. I mean, I do know, like, marketing research. Like, I have no idea really where people come from when they buy Serum, but I would guess that, like, majority of people heard about it from, like, either artists they look up to or from peers. Well,
and it just helps. And you know, while we're on the subject of Elon Musk, one of the best Elon Musk quotes that I've ever heard was, "If you want to make $1 billion, help 1 billion people." I thought that was really amazing.
That's pretty good. Although I like the Richard Branson's "How to Become a Millionaire."
What is his one?
That's easy. Start as a billionaire and then buy an airline.
That's pretty good.
The reverse approach. That's great.
That's pretty good. Word. Well, cool. Thanks so much for sharing that story and for sharing your time. Either you have anything that you want to say to our viewers here before we go?
Anything you want to plug?
Anything you want to plug?
Nothing plug. I'm excited by the. I'm excited by the future of the plugins. Serum's going to get a major update soon. LFO tool is going to be completely rewritten with some really rad new features. And yeah, all updates are always free. So it's like, it's fun to like, I love putting new stuff in and just feeling that excitement by people like, oh my God, I can do this now, I can do this now. And yeah, I think I've done 200 updates to Serum now, and now a lot more on the way. And I'm slowly starting it over as well, because just to be future-proof, I need to just rebuild it all. And that's going to be exciting, because a lot of people, there's these same requests over and over. Hey, I want multiple of the same effect.
And a sidechain. People are always asking me for the sidechain in Serum. Sidechain. AU5 did a tutorial about how to make a sidechain in the Serum.
Oh,
effects.
okay, right.
Yeah, but people are always wanting a sidechain.
Yeah, buy LFO tool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I use LFO tool all the time.
Awesome.
And then I got one suggestion too for OTT. You've I'm sure you've watched some sound design tutorials with the likes of Virtual Riot and whatnot, where they end up doing triple OTT in a row. If there's like a triple button.
Oh, interesting.
The OTT, because there's a lot of the time.
They're really just doing nothing tweaking them? Just
they literally just stack 3 OTTs in a row, like especially when you're doing really extreme aggressive bass sound design. Having 3 of them in a row is great, but then if you want to change a setting, it's like you got to manually go in and change the setting on all 3. But normally people do triple default OTT either within Ableton.
I made a build that's N band, so instead of being a 3-band split, you can do like
that's
8
cool.
or 16.
That would be useful.
It's kind of nuts. I'll send you a build if I can shore it up.
Cool. Well, awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Be sure to check out Robb G and Steve Duda. Xfer, or is it transfer or Xfer?
I say Xfer so people
I've
know
always
what we're
said
saying.
Xfer.
Yeah,
too.
that's
Okay, cool. So yeah, Xfer Records, Serum, OTT, Cthulhu, all kinds of good stuff. So and don't sleep. All right, thanks for watching, everybody. Lots of love. I'll see you around. Peace.